fine.
All right. Yeah, we can start with some demos. Let's see, I think what groups did we have last week? Does Hanson and Yufa, do you want to go first?
Yeah. Let's see. Host disabled participant screen sharing. Okay. Okay. And is my screen showing up okay?
Yep.
All right. So me and Yufa had a ticket where we got to implement a feature where we can allow the user to join an existing shopping list by inputting a 3-worded token. Let me delete this so I can bring you guys to the home. All right. So essentially what we added was an input and a button. And I'll show you what it looks like if they input the wrong list. And an error will show up saying this token does not exist. And if they input the correct one, what was pretty cool too is we used the .trim method. In case if the user adds a space in the beginning or the end, it would still allow them to enter the list. And if the user successfully enters, it will be navigated to the list page. And so let me share my code. Okay, so for the code, we started at the Firebase JS file. This was probably the hardest part of the week for us. But with Lauren's recommendation, we took a look at the docs and we decided to add an extra asynchronous function calling it check item. And we passed in the list ID as the parameter. And essentially we use the collection method here to use list ID and create a collection reference. Then we pass that into the getDocs method. So where we're grabbing all the documents that exist in that list collection reference. And then if there isn't anything that exists in there, we're going to return a false. And if there is, we'll return true. And so we exported that into the home component where we're using the useState hooks to set 2 different states, token input and an isError input. And the app is rendering basically an input and a button to where we made sure the input or the label was related to the input by using join list. And on submit of that form, it'll run the handle token submit function here. And so here we're saying whatever the user enters into the input, we made sure to use the trim method and the .to lowercase method. And we're gonna we would pass that into the check item function that was pulled in from the Firebase. And then we had an if else conditional statement saying if there is a list present, we would set that set list token state to that modified input. And if not, we will show the error. We will set the error to true, which will show this paragraph element, which is the error message. And that's pretty much it. Did you want to add anything to it, Yufa?
You did really well.
All right, sweet. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah, nice job this week. It's always hard trying to deal with the Firestore API. So good job figuring out the best way to figure out whether a collection was empty or not.
Yeah. At first it was like we just got to work and we just set it as is, but then I didn't realize we didn't actually grab it to where we're grabbing the docs.
Yeah. Sweet. Very cool. So let's jump over to the other group. We have Olivia and Lizzie, I think.
Yeah, I can share if that's okay. Cool. Okay, so excuse me. So our ticket was to be able to search your existing list. So here's my meaty list. And you can look up dish soap or carrots, and it'll just like search as you're typing, and then we've got a clear button that you can clear. So the end result, pretty straightforward and simple. But we also dove deep into the trim method this week and sort of, I don't want to say we feature creep, but we were very curious coders this week. So we'll start with our list. Yeah, so we added just a little basic form on change of the input. We saved into state the user's search query, and then we added a little button that says on click, you cleared the search. And then from there, we use the use memo function saying that if there is an item to search, filter through all of the data and return it onto the page. And we did 2 lowercase in both of those cases, so we didn't have to deal with capitals or lowercases. While we were looking at that, we were thinking about implementing trim and decided that it was probably best to implement before the items were added to the database. So we implemented a little bit here where we like accounted for multiple spaces in between words, but we learned that if you put a trim in your handle input, you can't type in 2-word items. So we put the kibosh on that plan. But while we were digging into that, we ended up refactoring the add item to list function because I felt the errors were not showing up correctly. So we just moved it into this async await function, implemented catch error, which is pretty much what we had before, but just tweaking the syntax a little bit so the errors implemented correctly onto the page. And then I also, since I was in here, threw in the refactored message to be put on the page that you talked about last week while I was in the airport. So yeah, kind of a little simple search feature that kind of snowballed a little bit, but it was fun to dig our hands into the trim method a little bit more. Lizzie, anything to add?
No, nothing to add. Nice job.
Cool.
Sweet. Yeah, great job this week. Was there anything, what was like the most interesting thing you learned from working on the ticket this week?
For me, just like getting everybody's opinion, like talking to Lizzie about it and hearing Lauren's point of view was really nice to be like, instead of just like diving into Google and trying to like figure out the words to Google to find the answer, it was nice to like bump ideas off of other people and like get to an answer sooner.
Totally. Yeah, I really appreciated the conversations going on in the PRs recently. I think that's been really awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. I'm not sure who's up next. Lauren, is that you?
Yes. Unless if anyone, one more time, does anyone have anything else to say about the demos or questions or anything? Okay, then we will get on to paired programming. So this is actually, it's a pretty short module, but it's just to go over, now that you all have been doing some pair programming for at least a couple weeks, just to go over some like general ideas about it, and also to see what your experience has been like. So in order to have a great time pair programming, it's a lot about having the right mindset and attitude. So it's an exercise in sharing your Lego. And it can be more efficient to go with your partner's idea sometimes than to fight about it. So like, you know, maybe if you disagree, but you want to test out what your partner said, and then you can always adjust later. But it's kind of learning how to give and take. Oops. It's great when you're doing it to have a beginner's mindset. So, embrace if you doubt something, or and the fact that there's different possibilities out there, especially if you go into it thinking that there's multiple ways to solve the same thing, you'll probably end up learning something from your partner. It's not about teaching or mentorship. It's just about working together. It's an opportunity to learn. There are often two types of roles when you're doing it. One is the driver, which is who should seek agreement before proceeding, and one is the navigator. Just a reminder, ask, not tell. So pair programming this I think was most relevant prior to COVID, but it used to be back in the day when people worked next to each other, two developers sitting in front of a computer and taking turns writing code with just one keyboard. I'm curious to know if any of you did that. When I was at my boot camp, we did do this for the first couple of months until we went remote because of COVID. So that was interesting. So the driver generally controls the keyboard, is responsible for actually writing the code in order to complete the task. And they will try to verbalize what they're thinking as they go. So keep the other person in the loop to make sure that you're both kind of at the same place in the code. So this says think low level about the code. This is talking about the actual implementation of the code. The navigator, on the other hand, should be paying close attention so that they know, they're following and know exactly where they are in the process. Should offer guidance, suggest alternatives, and sometimes as the driver is implementing something that they've already agreed on, the navigator can move ahead and start to research some answers to upcoming questions or challenges that they see as the next step in the process. The navigator should act as a sounding board for the ideas that the driver is coming up with, and think of it from like a higher bird's eye view. So, general direction versus the type of syntax or something like that. Pairing remotely, there's a lot of amazing tools out there that make remote pairing even more collaborative. I heard from, I think it was Lizzie and Yufa talking about one tool. So hopefully you all can share that in a moment. But yeah, there's a lot of great collaboration that can even happen without the actual same physical keyboard. So the general process is two developers hop on a call, they video and screen share. So the driver shares their screen and codes while the navigator provides feedback and answers questions. The driver pushes the code remotely after they finish a portion of the task, and the navigator pulls it down locally so that you can then swap roles. And then that way each person can kind of stay active in the code. It can depend, of course, depending on how complex the feature is. I know the first week you all said that you finished it in about 20 minutes. So that might not make sense to have you switch halfway through. But maybe in a slightly more complex feature, it would be nice that both of you have a chance to do it. So that's the end. Oops, except for resources. And so how has this aligned with your experience so far, pair programming here and or wherever you learned a boot camp before, or past experiences, etc.? Olivia, what has your experience been like?
Great. My experience has been good. I think we've been operating pretty much like this. I think switching on and off is kind of the challenge, because it's like I feel like when it's remote and you have to like push up what you've written, it's kind of like it like really stops the like thoughts going, because you got to like work through logistically, like move it around. But like other than that, I think it's been kind of working like that, both here and like my experiences outside of the Collab lab too. Yeah, I don't know, I liked it. I didn't realize that like in my old job we would have like a driver when we were like pattern drafting on the computer. My manager would be like, oh, I'll drive now. Okay, Olivia, how about you drive? And I didn't know that like I thought that was just like cute saying that my work used. So kind of cool to see it like implemented in this like other way.
Cool. Have any of you, or Lizzie and Yufa, can you remind me? I think we talked about it in the office hour, but what any tools you've used that you found helpful?
I think we are always using VS Code, right? Live share. Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
free tool. It has some problems when we share servers. Sometimes it doesn't work, but it's free.
That's true. You know, what's funny is I remember using live share in my boot camp. It was really useful. And then I've pair programmed a bit at work and we haven't tried that actually. We usually just have one person doing it and the other person commenting. Cool.
I
How
think one of
about,
the side benefits of it is like all the other stuff you pick up along the way. So for example, like I'm finding that different people call the syntax different things, like curly braces versus square brackets. So it's interesting to hear how people put it, and it's getting me used to talking about code out loud when I'm used to just working on it myself. Also, as an aside, as a computer science teacher in high school, I make my students use pair programming, but I've never done it myself. So it's been interesting to see what it's like. I understand their perspective now.
That comment is because when Lizzie and I were pair programming, I called them smoothies, smooth brackets, and she really there was a big miscommunication there. It's like, yeah, I just typed in some smoothies, and she's like, what? So that was funny.
nice. Wait, so which ones did you call smoothies?
They're like your regular brackets are smoothies, and then you've got your curlies and then square brackets. That's how it works in my brain, at least.
Got it.
That's hilarious. I love that.
How about do any of you have a preference? Well, actually, I'd love to hear each person's preference for navigator versus driver. And if I'm curious if in this experience so far you've done both, or if there's one you haven't done yet. Hanson, can you go first?
I guess so far we haven't gone like I haven't at the start of the session it wasn't like you're gonna be driver or I'll be navigator. I think it was so far I've taken the role like if I knew how to do it, I would just kind of speak my mind and communicate like what my thought process on it, and I guess the other person would just take the keyboard since we are using via or live share, so we can both work on the same exact terminal, I guess. But yeah, I don't know. I think if I know what to do, I guess I'll take the driver, the driver role. But yeah, I think going forward we'll probably have to speak like or set like the roles in the beginning and work on that, I guess.
I mean, honestly, everyone's different. I think I remember when I was working with different teams, some people worked better wherever it was kind of like an equal thing going back and forth. But also it might be good to practice having those different roles just because this is a time to practice that stuff, and you can yeah, maybe like when you either are working with people in a whiteboarding experience and they're like working in like a live interview, or when you go and work somewhere, maybe they'll do something like that.
Yeah, that makes sense because everything was like you said, just kind of equal thing. But yeah, we'll operate with the specific role next time, I guess.
Worth a shot. If you hate it, you can mention that in the retro. Okay, great. Well, I think those links were added already in the Slack channel. I'll make sure all of them were there. If not, I'll add the rest of the links to that as well. Otherwise, unless someone has something else to comment. Nope. Okay. Otherwise, I think we'll move on to the issues.
Okay, cool. We are speeding through everything. Okay, cool. I'll share my screen. I am in the wrong one. Okay, there we go. Okay, so for week 4, for pair 1, we have Yufa and Lizzie, and then the second pair is Hanson and Olivia. So now we're on issues 7 and 8. So I'll read both of them and then let you guys pick if you want one or the other. So I liked how Tim did that. Okay. So for issue 7, it's as a user, I want to see a welcoming prompt to add my first item if my list is empty to help me get oriented to how the app works. So when a user starts a new list, they need a little guidance on how to get started. Think through what you'd want to see as a user and make some intentional user experience decisions that will guide our users in confidently adding their very first item. And so for the AC, it's the list view when there are no items to display should show a prompt, like a button, for the user to add their first item. So I know that sounded a little vague, but then they give you like the wireframe. So don't worry. Okay. So here it is. If you don't have anything in your list, you'll get some text saying that your shopping list is empty and then a button just to get to the add item view. And that's it. So this one's pretty simple, straightforward. Are there any questions for this one yet? No. Okay. Let me move my Zoom bar. Cool. Yeah, this one's super straightforward. And then for issue number 8. Oh wait, did I miss the notes? Hold on. No, just the wireframe. Okay, cool. Okay, so for issue number 8, I think this one's a lot of fun. Okay, so as a user, I want to mark an item on my shopping list as purchased so the app can learn how often I buy different items. The summary, users need a UI that allows them to mark their items as purchased so they can track what on their list they do and do not need to buy. So for the AC, the list item component renders a checkbox with a semantic label. Checking off the item in the UI also updates the date last purchased and total purchases properties on the corresponding Firestore document or object. And then that item should be shown as checked for 24 hours after the purchase is made because we assume that the user doesn't need to buy it at least for one day. And then after those 24 hours is up is when the item unchecks itself so the user can buy it again. And the update item function in Firebase.js has been filled out and sends updates to the Firestore database when an item is checked or unchecked. So I think right now it's an empty function that you'll have to fill. And then for the notes, while you will need to update multiple parts of the Firestore document for this feature, don't do anything with date next purchase. That'll be for the next issue. So you'll only be touching date last purchased and total purchases. And then, oh, this is a good point. Okay, so you're gonna need to test if your checkbox is only being checked for 24 hours. So the way you'll do that is you'll make your feature work and then you'll go on like your console here. And then for date last purchase, it'll have like a date that you checked it and you can just put it that it was like the day before to see if it's been unchecked or not. Does that make sense? Yeah, okay, cool. All right, so that was issue 8. So does anyone have any preferences for either 7 or 8? I know it's definitely like a little uneven like the commitment. So if not, I'll just random.
Are you down to do number 8, Olivia?
Hell yeah, let's get it.
Okay, cool. Let me assign not myself. Hanson, Olivia, cool. So that's number 8. And then oh wait, no, you're Lizzie. There we go. There we go. Okay. Cool. Okay, you're all assigned. All right. Let me stop sharing. Yeah, I'm definitely excited to see that PR when it comes up. Okay. So I think that's all for me.
And this always speeds through. It's so funny. The last group my last group, I think we almost always went a little over. We're like, let's really try to finish in the hour so people finish on time.
It's fun.
Were yours on Sunday too, Lauren?
They were on Sunday, yeah. But I mean, it wasn't like it went crazy. We just wanted people to be able to, if they had plans after, not, you know.
So is this group considered efficient? Like, are we pretty efficient in the way everyone's working?
Yeah, very efficient.
Yeah, especially the demos. I feel like you all are really, really on top of your demos. That's
Oh my
cool.
god, yeah. I feel like I would always fumble through my big, this is what this does, and then but you guys like very eloquently.
I got on an hour before and I practiced. That's why.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, I
Here.
all of you like I'm really proud of you.
I just
Gotta
wing
practice
it,
it,
but I'm
Nicole.
glad everybody else is
Oh, yeah.
practicing.
That's funny.
How's everything going outside of Collab Lab? Have you all been, has anyone been looking into like interviews or applying places?
I got an offer letter on Friday.
Oh,
Oh,
snap.
wow.
Mhm.
Nice.
Congratulations.
Thank
Are you waiting
you.
for others?
Yeah, I sent emails to the other people I've been interviewing with, being like, "Hey, I got an offer somewhere else. Last chance." So we'll see what happens. So
That's
tomorrow's a big day. I
Awesome.
gotta
I'm
make
so excited for
decisions.
you.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm excited too.
You said tomorrow's a deadline?
Hmm.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's an
Cool, cool, cool.
interactive developer role, so I'll be making animated banner ads for a marketing agency.
Cool.
Interesting. That's cool.
Awesome. You find Hanson, I don't remember. Are you actively applying right now, or are you waiting for a bit?
I'm currently waiting for a bit and looking for other internship opportunities before I start applying, but maybe in about like a month or two, I'll probably start applying after I get all my prep finished.
Cool.
Yeah, I'm also waiting for a little bit too, because I feel like a lot of companies are pausing to hire junior roles. I know there still roles exist, obviously, but at the same time, I feel I've been talking to my friends. I feel relying on referrals. Yeah, referrals is a better approach, at least to me. So yeah.
Yeah. It seems like all levels are being affected by the current state of things too. It just, yeah, I keep seeing more and more news about some other huge company pausing or laying off people. So
Mm-hmm.
hopefully that'll turn around in the fall.
Yeah. I know some like roles they open for 24 hours and then get a lot of applicants. And my recruiter friend just kind of stopped sharing that job description on the website, which is not good for people who are kind or late, right? Like they can't even apply anymore, but they have to do it. Otherwise, they will get tons of applications they won't be able to read even.
I saw
Yeah.
a junior developer ad that was on LinkedIn today that had 1,500 applicants.
I was supposed to hear back on Friday about an internship. They said they have to push it off until next week. But when I during the final round interview, the recruiter said they had 5,000 applications for this role.
Wow.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Jeez.
Yeah. I don't even think they can finish reading all of them, to be honest.
Mm-mm.
I think Laura mentioned like a cover letter, right? Like half of them doesn't have cover letter. Maybe that's how they filter. I don't even know like what's the criteria, because just one person, 5,000 applications.
I mean, unless you
Crazy
are
stuff.
also free during like very free during whatever 24 hours they're open, you know, how are you going to tailor a cover letter within like an hour? It's just, yeah, that's really tough.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Lizzie and Olivia, since you got through things that were like 5,000 people, do you feel like
Yeah.
anything you did or got you through that, or what would you recommend based on your experience for getting through that first filter round?
Yeah, so my very first interview, I had like 6 weeks into my boot camp because I was very confident and cocky. I did not get it, but I was like, let's fucking apply. What's the worst could happen? And it was really good, I think, to have an interview before I knew very much, because then now that I know stuff, they're less intimidating. But that one, I followed the like early careers recruiter on LinkedIn, and she was like, hey, applications are opening like in a week from now. So I like knew when the posting was going, and I like pre-wrote what I thought would be the application, and I applied like right away. So I think that's how I got that one. The job that I got an offer for was like the company reached out to my boot camp and was like, hey, do you have any students? And I messaged back right away on that one. So I think that helped. And then some other ones I've just been targeting like hybrid roles in my area because I think the fully remote ones get like a lot of applications. Also, I'm in Canada, so we have fewer people here than the state of California. So it's a little different than where you all are. But yeah, I think just following people on LinkedIn and being speedy, unfortunately, is like the way to do it. And then make your resume so it can be read by the computer bots and just apply everywhere. That's my recommendation.
Referrals, a lot of my interviews I've gotten through referrals. And I've had noticeably like less success in the past month and a half than I've been looking since January, and like January, February went pretty good, but like March and April, I definitely saw a slowdown. So things have changed. And I can only apply for fully remote roles. There isn't in-person roles where I live. So they are really competitive.
Have any of you tried a hackathon before? I remember, I mean, I don't know how, I'm sorry?
I thought Hanson had.
I haven't had like a hackathon, but I joined like another group similar to Collab Lab. It's like a 6-week sprint. Like I guess in a way it's like a hackathon, basically creating a project. But yeah, I think those are a good way to stand out as well. Kind of use it as experience.
Yeah. And hopefully connections too.
Yeah, for sure. I think there's like a company called like MLH, Major League Hacking. They do a lot of hackathons and like programs as well. If you guys want to check that out for early career developers.
Yeah. And there was I forget what it was. It was something with New York. Like a New York, I did one hackathon through them and I didn't know anybody. Like they just put me on a random team, which actually ended up, it wasn't for very long. It was like a weekend, but they had some kind of mentor pop in and things like that. And that was nice. It just kind of, in that particular instance, it didn't lead to like a specific connection, but I feel like it could lead to a nice networking thing where maybe you could have more people to refer you or something.
Mhm.
But that is more time. Cool. Well, I've chatted a lot, but yeah, it was just nice to hear more about how y'all are doing. And I guess if we don't have anything else, we finished nice and early. Cool. Okay. Well, yeah, and I think I'm the one doing office hours this week. So whoever's free on Wednesday, I will see you Wednesday afternoon, evening.
Okay.
Cool. Thank you,
Cool.
everyone.
Bye.
See you guys.